Danas govorimo o temi koja možda izgleda jednostavno, zapravo je veoma kompleksna. Kako kompanija koja želi da izađe na strano tržište, na globalno tržište, može to zapravo i da uradi. I često pomislimo da je problem u kapitalu, da je problem u kontaktima, ali retko da je možda problem baš u onome što je najočiglednije. To je da znamo kako svet funkcioniše, da znamo gde nas šta očekuje ili šta je ono što nas eventualno može očekivati. Da budemo spremni da razmišljamo o mogućim budućnostima. O ovome danas razgovaramo sa jednom od najvećih stručnjaka u ovoj oblasti, sa profesorkom sa Bukonije. Moja gošća večeras je Olga Anuškina, profesorka strategije i međunarodnog poslovanja na SDA Bocconi School of Management. Bocconi, koji je osnovan pred 124 godine, decenijama je jedna od najvažnijih evropskih institucija kada je u pitanju obrazovanje lidera, menadžera i preduzetnika. Ali Olga Anuškina nije samo profesor. Ona je godinama radila u realnom biznisu u velikim međunarodnim konsultantskim kompanijama kao što su Bain Company, KPMG i Value Partners. I to je daje za pravo da kaže znam šta vam treba da biste postali velika internacionalna kompanija. Ona zna da globalni uspeh nije slučajnost, već da je to dobro osmišljena i sprovedena strategija i sposobnost da razumete tržišta, kulture i promene koje oblikuju svetsku ekonomiju. First of all, thank you for your time. And
thank you for the invitation, Marko. Yeah. Thank you.
And we met first time in Milan, I remember, and I was really excited about your lectures, and it's crazy what you're doing, and you're also in your research. But before we talk about how companies go global, which is one of the pillars of your work, and you teach, and you also design very practical guides for the companies how to go global. I would like to ask you, how did you go global? So from Moscow to Milan, yes. From KPMG and Bain to Bocconi at the end.
Yes.
What was the personal journey, and what this personal journey could teach you that no textbook ever could?
All right, wow, what a question. So I think it all started when I was 4-year-old, and I remember walking around Moscow, and my grandma showed to me the beautiful building on the Moscow State. And she said, look, if you behave well, if you have good grades at school, so you'll go and study there. And I did, actually, yes. And I chose to study economics. And then between the second and the third year, as many students at that time, so we were living through the times of change. So we're talking about 90s, and the reforms are happening. And what I was feeling that I wanted really to check if what I was studying was actually useful. Reality check. And I think it's probably the red thread of the whole my career. And so that's how I started looking for job opportunities. And a friend of mine, he said, there is a startup, small consulting company. They're looking for part-time analysts. And this is how I started working. At the age of 18, I was between my second and the third year, and I did my first business trip to Kogalym, which is in the middle of Western Siberia. And I was 18, and I did my first consulting project thanks to this business trip.
But even if you look in your researches, and just for our audience to say that this one big part of this is like how the internationalization should happen from the view of the businesses or entrepreneurship and the companies, and how it should be taught in if you want to go out of your market and go in other markets. And also you wrote a book, The Art of Growing Globally. You was a co-author of this book. But I like this because you told that it was a connection first the university, then the practical work and practice of in KPMG and Bain, and then back to the academia, which also you can see in the book because you're very practical. You're giving some kind of toolkits and really explaining how the entrepreneurs could do it and should do it. But the time when you wrote it was 2020. And immediately after that, I think the world started
Changed
to
completely.
change totally. You know, first with the pandemic,
Yes.
then with the war in Europe with the Russia and Ukraine, then with the energy crisis, then with the AI revolution, with the technological level. So then with the tariff wars, and then first Trump administration, and then, everything somehow changed. So basically, how do you see it then? So you published something in the world which was more or less one, let's say, open
in one shape,
world,
yes.
in very predictable, shape, and then everything changed.
Yes.
How do you assess
How
that?
so? Whether my book, whether our book is still relevant. Look, I believe that if our goal is to improve the decision making, right, the decision making has to be based on the analysis, right, and the analysis of such complex systems as business context. It has several phases. First of all, you identify the elements, right? Which factors do you have to look at?
Yeah.
And these factors they remain the same,
Yeah.
right? And then you look at the relationship between these factors, right? So, for instance, how technology is impacting business models, or how tariffs are impacting the attractiveness of some countries, right? The relationships are the same.
Yeah.
And then the third step is that you're looking at these relationships in the dynamic way.
Yeah.
So not looking just at the past, but looking at the perspective. Yeah. So coming back to the book, so we designed it as a sort of a recipe book, right? Recipe book. So
That's
it's partly
very practical.
yes, it's I think in general, I think that female management, female entrepreneurship is very pragmatic. We tend to be, yes, multitasking, but also quite productive. And the idea of this book, so you don't have really time to read all the chapters. You have to make decisions about the selection of the foreign markets. You go directly to to that chapter, you read it. If you're interested in other chapters, then you go. So in every single chapter of the book, the first thing is we're making the cooking list, the shopping list of the elements that you have to look at.
Yeah.
Right? And already this is bringing the decision making on a different level, because you start saying, when we are looking at the portfolio of markets in which we are operating, have we considered that within one national market there might be 3 different regions of a different attractiveness, which is one of the small ideas inside of this book. And so this is how we believe that so every single chapter is providing you, first of all, with a new set of elements to look at, or with a complete set of elements to look at.
Yeah.
Second thing is we are proposing some cause-effect relationships among these elements, and that are linking these elements to your possible strategic outcomes. Yeah. I don't know if my answer was too conceptual.
I loved it, and I hope that, but I will also try to put it also more concrete. It is not about explaining that the world is in one state and that you have to live in this state forever, and then to think how you will go to the part of the world in this specific state which is far away from you, but to think about all the outcomes and possibilities and factors that are creating the state. And then we could also compare it with the AI, and basically what it is the fine tuning of the weights between the aspects. So the aspect of global political aspect, or the aspect of the health, or the aspect of any other were always there, but the weight between them was a difference. So that's what I liked in this kind of your approach, is that you are not telling now we are living like this and this is the order we're living, but how to cope, really, to change your mindset. And this is what your book is all about. So basically, what you're saying, I would just try to put it one example. For example, logical versus narrative, and thinking in possible futures. It's like, okay, there is a country, and everything tells me, the data that I have, that this is a great opportunity for my company. I go there, market research tells it's beautiful. But then the Moreus got closed, and it is that I should be able to imagine the scenarios which are not based only on data, but to think in the stories that could happen. This is something
yes, because if you think that many companies they replace strategy conversations with budget discussions, right? So they have a beautiful market analysis.
It is not or.
No, they have to complement one another, right? So we shall have the budget, we shall have KPIs for every single person, for every single department, yes. But when we do our planning, so we must see that our projections, our ideas about a certain market, they depend on some important external variables that can either create opportunities or create threats. Right, and so our idea is to be, first of all, to be able to monitor these ideas and these possible opportunities or threats. And mind you, I'm strongly convinced that if companies that can be very good in customer analysis, competitive analysis, to have the skills to have a broader picture about the market, right, about external macro forces that may impact the industry. And if you think that most of the shocks in the past 5 or 6, 7 years, they arrived from the macro environment, but our companies, do they have the tools? Do they have the time? Do they have the possibilities also to have the sort of radar open and to start analyzing the possible vulnerabilities, or on the opposite, the opportunities that come from the outside of their industry?
This is exactly where I wanted to have you now.
Okay,
because
great.
This is something which we are living through in the last years, but I think especially in the last months. And we will stay there for a while. And in the research, in your research on offshoring and global value chains, you studied also how companies fragment their production across the borders, how that had also the gains, but of course the hidden risks. And right now we can see that you were very open in your research to point to that, what you already said. There is an environment which is not to be excluded. But, is it, we all say that it's now the period of globalization ended, and some of them are saying, being go ever cheaper and ever more efficient in global production, that actually the globalization gave us a slap back. So a punch back now in this time. So is it we are living this time now, and you can say I told you so.
Yes. So the patterns of globalization certainly changed. So this is what the period that we are going through is absolutely completely different from what we could observe 10 years ago, 20 years ago. The patterns has changed. So the complexity for companies it increased dramatically, because it's not only industry complexity, it's also the impact of the technology and the impact of all the possible macro forces that are impacting their business models. So I believe that the leitmotif for most of companies, like why we do strategy, why do we go abroad, it's about growth. Right, growth, and internationalization is one of the growth opportunities, right? And I think
but on the both sides, on the new markets, but also on the costing element of input costs.
on the production side, on the sourcing side. So if we look at data are showing to us interesting things, because on one hand, the foreign direct investments they became quite volatile, because companies they say, okay, let us wait and see. So we see that the curves is going really up and down. Whereas export and import flows, it's quite resilient, because if you think the interdependence of markets, it is there and it remained. Right, so we are saying that the patterns of globalization, they are changing and so on, but we are tremendously depending one on another. Right, and it's not only the very much recent phenomenon. I really like to start my internationalization classes with the example of typical Swiss products. One of them is cheese, right? And cheese is made thanks to sea salt, and Switzerland doesn't have sea, right? So they kept on importing sea salt for centuries. nature. So we are interdependent. So to go through these times of complexity, I believe in the short term, but this is once again, it's more subjective view. It's also thanks to the conversations with managers, entrepreneurs that come to our courses, is that the role of our macro regions will be increased. Right, because macro regions, they feel more predictable. So trading with the neighboring countries, it may at least in part replace and create a sort of the safety net for both sides, for both reasons of internationalization.
What I want to ask you, is it that according to you, is that the forces of internationalization behind internationalization somehow changed from this kind of let's go out to grow to more, let's go out there where we can secure our development in the predictable future?
Well, I think yes and no, because on one hand, I think the businesses are always driven by growth, right? We have to create economic value, not only because because shareholders are pressuring for that, but also we have to retain talent, and we have to create opportunities for talented people that are working for our companies to have interesting projects, have interesting growth opportunities. So I think this is going to be an important driving force. So to create opportunities with the careful analysis of what can be done once again, I think in the macro region, but also in more distant locations, and to look at the world map from a really different point of view, rather than looking only at our industry, but to broaden our analysis also to the macro forces.
Because not order to predict what will happen, but in order to be ready for the possibilities that could happen if environment develops in this or in that
That's
way.
the freedom of high quality decision making, right? That is giving you the freedom and the possibility to make choices. Yes, absolutely.
I will just reconnect that a little bit to our country. That actually, Serbia gathered a lot of foreign direct investments in the last 15 years. Most of them came from Europe, but then the things started to change. Again, even with the slower dynamic of growth in Europe, there were still investments from European companies because they wanted to nearshore.
Okay.
But on the other side, we had Asian investors coming to this region to invest in production facilities exactly because they wanted to be on the continent and near to the market. So basically, the two, not necessarily the same dynamics, but open the new possibilities for the country.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I believe when entrepreneurs are looking for investors, their criteria also for selecting their future partners, it's not only the capital, but also in the others from the strategic perspective. So what kind of skills, what kind of capabilities these or other opportunities or connections or networks these investors can bring to make the business profit. So it's not only, I think, the capital decision, right?
But if it go back, because this is also, it happens because the world developed in this way. A lot of companies would. I don't think that most of the companies thought about the scenarios, but the scenarios came to them. So there is another issue that I just want also to little bit talk about this region, and we are sitting here in the Serbian Chamber of Commerce, and Serbia was 2024 the second fastest growing economy on the whole continent. We have ICT, software is our first export product. Export reached 5.5 billion euros last year. We just received first investment grade rating. And for us, how do you see it from differently from when you are looking from the distance? Honestly, Serbia building some kind of global competitiveness in the way or are we still mostly in the cost advantage, let's say, playbook? What do you think?
Well, I believe that cost advantage is a difficult advantage to maintain in time, right? And so the path in the mid-term, in the long term, it will not be sustainable for any European country. So as the economic growth goes on, the cost of living, the purchasing power is going on. So it's inevitable that the country has to find its different specialization. So the faster it happens, the better it is. And with the strong, so it from just my going around the city, the beautiful city of Belgrade. So what I saw a huge stock of heritage in terms of science, in terms of culture, and you feel it in the air, right? When we going to certain places, sometimes we feel it in the air, and this is what I felt in the air. So I think it's a great path towards a specialization, towards the industry that will be extremely relevant, but also at the European level, as I believe every single macro region will need to have its hubs, its specialization centers that will be absolutely crucial for the future productivity, for the future competitiveness.
This is especially in the case of Europe, which we haven't tackled this topic, but I will come to that also. But bringing back to Milan and to Bocconi and to our country, you have a lot of students actually from Serbia studying there. So what is your experience in working with them?
Yes. Look, I teach 2 classes for the bachelor degree, right? So for the third year students, and my classes are usually super popular with exchange students, right? So my classes are really a melting pot, and I do a lot of in-class assignments. So I push students to work in international groups, and what I can say, they do fit in very well, so they like to take the lead of the group work, right? Sometimes it takes them some time to start participating actively so when I ask questions, I love asking questions to the class. Maybe after the first, second, from the third session onwards, they start answering, but it's everyone has their own time, and so it's absolutely
something also with the educational background from the past and different teaching styles. Yes, this is absolute true. So they are perfectly, fantastically fitting in, and they come to talk to me after the classes during the breaks. And so now when I'll be back to my classes, I'll tell them that I saw about my visit, about your amazing hospitality. It's just your first time in Belgrade, and we will see you soon here.
I would love to. So.
And for the end, but let's say for the end of our discussion, you mentioned also Europe, and I will not leave this discussion without talking about strategy, talking about scenarios, talking about thinking in the possibilities. We cannot leave aside the discussion where is Europe and how Europe should look like. And what the Europe strategy could be. And one of the aspects you mentioned, that especially this diversification that we have on the continent could be our competitive advantage once. But I would connect it with something else. This is something with your passion. This is jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow.
I heard that you're very good in this sport. And in jiu-jitsu, as I understood, I'm not an expert, but the position is the most important. So, what position you take in the front of the action? Yeah? And if Europe, and being Serbia also the part of the Europe, but talking about our continent, were a fighter. What position should it be trying to control? And what would be the 3 moves that you would anything. Oh.
I believe that jiu-jitsu metaphor for Europe is really perfect, because jiu-jitsu is the art is when so it's a martial art where not necessarily you have to be very strong, right, to prevail, so to win. So you are using technique, you are using your knowledge to win this competitive battle. And so when not only myself but also other female practitioners in my gym, so when the new white belts arrive and they're big and they're stronger, usually for the first weeks, so we, you know, so and I think why it is so Europe, if you think that it's so the integrated market, yes, but at the end there are different countries, and it's completely different from much bigger markets. So rather than using you know this strength, but using the specialization and knowing when and how to apply. But and the important thing, you don't have to be perfect at anything. Yeah. So selecting exactly what is your favorite position, your favorite sequence of techniques, and then you excel in this, and then it is going to be relevant for your success.
There is a pool of sequences in Europe that are maybe even much bigger than the sequences that you can find in bigger markets. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. And this is going to, I think, the amazing opportunity for us to recognize, but not only as in terms of the government policy, but also thanks to the entrepreneurship, thanks to the amazing human and social capital, thanks to the values that these entrepreneurs they have, that they believe in their countries, that they believe in what can be done here. And this is going to be also the motivation, because in sports, it's not only strength, it's not only technique, it's also the mindset and the, let us say, the motivation, the soul, like us answering to the question, why do you do this? Right? Why do we do this? Right?
It's beautiful. I just want to thank you so much for this great ending of our discussion, and reminding us that, you know, the life is somehow like jiu-jitsu. It rewards those who prepare, adapt, and never stop learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marko. Thank you so much. Thank
Great.
you.
Pre nego što predstavim ovu knjigu, morat ću da podsjetim naše radoznalce na jedno od najpoznatijih knjiga iz istorije umetnosti, Story of Art, Ernsta Hansa Gombricha. U njoj je ona čuvena rečenica: ne postoji umetnost kao takva, postoje samo umetnici. Ali eto, posle više od 70 godina, jedna žena, također istoričarka umetnosti, Kati Hassel, napisala je jednu novu veliku knjigu koja se zove Priča o umetnosti bez muškaraca. Ova knjiga je u stvari savremeni odgovor na Gombrichovu knjigu u kojoj Hassel pokušava da u istoriji umetnosti uključi mnogi umetnice kojih nema u svojevrsnom udžbeniku istorije umetnosti iz 50-ih. Knjiga postavlja pitanje kako bi istorija umetnosti izgledala kada bi se u prvi plan stavili žene umetnice. Autorka vodi čitaoca kroz više od 5 vekova umetnosti, od renesanse do savremene umetničke scene, predstavljajući slikarke, vajarke, fotografkinje i konceptualne umetnice čiji je rad oblikovao umetničke pravce, ali je često ostajao u senci njihovih muških kolega. Svoje mesto u ovoj knjizi našla je i Marina Abramović, koju autorka pominje kao jednu od najvažnijih figura performans umetnosti. Kao primer njenog uticaja često se navodi čuveni performans Umetnik je prisutan, izveden u Museum of Modern Art u Njujorku. Tu je umetnica mesecima sedela za stolom i ćutke gledala posetioce koji su sedeli naspram nje. Svoje mesto u ovoj knjizi našla je i Sanja Iveković, jedna od najvažnijih umetnica jugoslovenske i evropske konceptualne i feminističke umetnosti. Ali Hassel ne pokušava da napiše paralelnu istoriju umetnosti, već da pokaže koliko je umetnički kanon bio selektivan i kako su društvene okolnosti od ograničenog pristupa akademijama do tržišta umetnosti uticale na vidljivost umetnica. Pročitajte ovu knjigu, ima zaista mnogo toga da se nauči, nešto što ćete prvi put čuti. I naravno, ostanite radoznali, jer vidimo se sledeće nedelje.